Section 8, Agile Software Project Management using JIRA. Introduction to JIRA. Atlassian JIRA is an open source or free web-based software tool that helps software teams track and manage their work items, such as tasks, issues, and bugs throughout a project's lifecycle. JIRA is a very popular tool for agile teams around the world and has unique features like task management, reporting, and integration with other tools to manage projects and track work items effectively. Let's do a recap of the Agile Scrum testing lifecycle. As you may now know throughout the course, the Agile Scrum testing lifecycle follows the traditional Agile process, but is a framework that fosters collaboration, flexibility, and continuous improvement to ensure project quality and success. The Agile Scrum model has several stages, from test planning, sprint planning, execution, daily Scrum meeting, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. The Agile Scrum model is very effective and very popular because it incorporates the end user feedback as well as constantly accounts for changes in the process. This is a really good diagram of the Agile Scrum process. We will walk through this diagram to demonstrate how we can implement the Agile Scrum process in JIRA. In the following diagram, you can see that the process is split into three different phases. Phase 1 consists of a product owner who basically knows the system or product very well. The product owner also communicates directly with the client and stakeholders to come up with the requirements as well as groom the requirements to ensure that it is put into a product backlog. The product owner is responsible for creating this product backlog, which hosts the items and features as well as the requirements for the product backlog. For the software development process that is equally distributed amongst the different teams. In phase 2 of the process, we have different aspects of the Agile Scrum process, which are very critical to the success of the project, which include sprint planning. In sprint planning, all of the team members come together from the development team, the testing team, the project management team, and other important members of the team who work to complete this project. During this sprint planning meeting, the timeline and deliverables are identified. Once the sprint planning meeting is completed, we move on to the actual sprint cycle. In the sprint cycle, we have 1 to 3 week sprints in which we implement different smaller components of a whole software system or application. During these sprints, we go through the daily process within a 24-hour period of every day within a sprint includes a daily Scrum meeting in which we all get together as a team between dev team, QA team, project managers, and discuss a very important breakdown consisting of 3 questions. Question number 1, what did we do yesterday? What was our goal? What did we accomplish yesterday? Question number 2, what are we planning to do today? And question number 3, are there anything blocking us from accomplishing or making progress in our goals for the day? This is usually managed by the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a very important role in this process because he organizes the Scrum daily activities as well as manages the Scrum board. And all can be seen in the burn down chart throughout the entire process, which tracks the progress of the project. In phase 3, which is the last phase of the process, once the sprint cycle is complete, we move on to demo. In the demo aspect or demo meeting, we meet with clients and stakeholders to show what we've accomplished or how much of the system we have completed. In the sprint review meeting, we have a meeting with the clients, stakeholders, and pretty much everyone on the team to understand what were the main accomplishments, how much progress we have made, and how much is left to do. And in the sprint retrospective, which is the last step of the cycle, we basically look back and provide feedback based on what was going well, what did not work well, and any areas of enhancements or improvements that we can implement moving forward. Here are some of the unique features of the JIRA platform. JIRA is open source, which means that it can be used by anyone for free. Although there are paid applications or versions of JIRA for businesses and organizations, most of its components or features can be implemented for free. JIRA is also highly customizable, allowing you to create your own workflows and address unique needs for your business or project. JIRA has a lot of features, built-in functions that allow for easy and user-friendly collaboration amongst team members as well as stakeholders. JIRA has customized workflows, which means that any organization can tailor its features and components to their business needs. Has powerful integration with other tools such as GitLab as well as Confluence. JIRA has many aspects for tracking and reporting as well. JIRA also has built-in security for permissions and access for different user or user groups. We will cover all of these features and more in our comprehensive tutorial on Agile Scrum using JIRA. Here is our Demo Blaze application. As we've covered before, we've looked at the featured products, navigation menu, login and sign up options, as well as other features such as the product page, shopping cart, and buttons on the page. Now, we're going to go through our comprehensive guide of Agile Scrum using the JIRA platform. In this comprehensive guide, we will walk through some of the most important features and aspects of JIRA through these lessons. First, we're going to create a new account on JIRA. Then, we're going to create a new project. We're going to select our project type as Agile Scrum template. Then, we're going to create a product backlog and move on to our sprint. Once we have our product backlog and sprint set up, we move on to looking at our roadmap, keeping track of our project and our sprint cycle using the Agile board, and working through some of the customized workflow features and options that are tailored to our specific project. Let's get started. Now, we're going to go through our comprehensive guide of Agile Scrum using the JIRA platform. In this comprehensive guide, we will walk through some of the most important features and aspects of JIRA through these lessons. First, we're going to create a new account on JIRA. Then, we're going to create a new project. We're going to select our project type as Agile Scrum template. Then, we're going to create a product backlog and move on to our sprint. Once we have our product backlog and sprint set up, we move on to looking at our roadmap, keeping track of our project and our sprint cycle using the Agile board, and working through some of the customized workflow features and options that are tailored to our specific project. Let's get started. I've created a demo or sample Agile project using the Demo Blaze application on the Agile platform. Let's take a look at it now. As you can see here, I have logged in to my user account on JIRA, which is the JIRA software platform, and it has listed the web application or project that I'm currently working on, which is the Demo Blaze web application. If I click into the project, I will be redirected to the Agile board. Here on the Demo Blaze application Agile board, I see several columns with different statuses. Here, there are statuses like to do, in progress, development, testing, ready for approval, and done. Using the Agile platform and its features of customization, you can actually program this board to display the different columns that are specific or tailor-made to your Agile project. If we click here on the backlog, you can see that I've already created a Demo Blaze application based sprint. Here I have two sprints that I have defined based on 2-week timeline. The first 2 weeks is here, and the second 2 weeks is here. On the bottom, you can see that this is the backlog or the product backlog in our Agile project. Under the first sprint, I've labeled core. This is basically all of the user stories listed here that are part of the core functionality that will be developed for the Demo Blaze application. Here in the sprint process or sprint lifecycle, I go through all of these user stories and mark them according to their progress or status. This backlog is very critical to identify the different sprints and work that is assigned or to be assigned to the team members. Using this Agile project template, you can track and manage all of the different core requirements set out by the client or end user through this sprint. Using JIRA, we're going to explore all of the options and features that are provided to successfully implement an Agile project. In order to use the JIRA platform, we must first create a new Atlassian account. This is free and can be followed using the link provided under the external resources of this course video. Under the external resources, you'll find a link that says JIRA account registration. Click on that link so we can walk through how to register for a free account. Click on the external resources link, you'll be navigated to this page. Once you're on this page, to create a new account, you can go under the My Account here and log in. In order to log in, we must first create a new account. So here, we'll click on Create an Account. There are several ways or options that you can create a new account or work with an existing credential from Google, Microsoft, Apple, or Slack. If you have an existing account with any of these other services, you can actually link them, create a new Atlassian JIRA account with it. Here, I've provided my email account and clicked on the sign up button. Once you go through the CAPTCHA verification, where it will prompt you to check your inbox to activate a link to your current email. Once you verify your email by clicking on the activation link, you'll be directed to this user input form. Here, you can enter your name, and then finally, sign up. Once I have successfully logged in to my new account, I will go ahead and click on here, JIRA software. Here on this page, click on Get It Free, this button. Once you're on this page for the JIRA software for project and issue tracking, you can also select a second product, which I will do here. Confluence is another product offered by Atlassian that allows for documentation. I will select Confluence as another option to be added under the applications that I would desire access to. Then I click Next. Once I've selected the options, I'll be directed to this page. Here, you can set your site name with a domain set for Atlassian. This is your unique Atlassian website. For example, I'm going to create something here called QA Tester 2023. Here, I'm going to name my site something that is unique, and you cannot use an existing user. I've selected my username for my website and clicked Agree. Here is the loading page for your new Atlassian website, which features the JIRA and Confluence integration all in one centralized platform. This may take some time, so you might want to grab a cup of coffee or take a walk. Once the page has loaded, you can click here for Skip. Now, we can actually create a new project through this field. Let's name our project Demo Blaze. Here, under the template, we'll select More Templates. In this project and in this course, we will be focusing on Agile Scrum model. So from the templates that are available, we will select Scrum. So now we have a new project called Demo Blaze, which is going to be created using the Scrum template. You can ignore the More options and finally click the Create button. Here, you can skip this part. Congratulations, you've created your first Agile Scrum project in JIRA. Here, there are some very helpful tips and guides provided by the JIRA platform to help you get settled in. Let's take the tour. This is the JIRA dashboard. As you can see here, based on our Agile Scrum template, we have a product backlog or backlog. Under the Quick Start menu, we have Create a Project. It indicates that this is the backlog, where user stories and requirements are prioritized, where we create different issue types from user stories to test scenarios and several other stages of the Agile process. Here is the option to create a sprint, and here is the option to start a sprint. And finally, there are insights available as well for helping gather information and data-driven analytics on the project. This is the general user account dashboard once logged in to our new Demo Blaze application. Here is the loading page for your new Atlassian website, which features the JIRA and Confluence integration all in one centralized platform. This may take some time, so you might want to grab a cup of coffee or take a walk. Once the page has loaded, you can click here for Skip. Now, we can actually create a new project through this field. Let's name our project Demo Blaze. Here, under the template, we'll select More Templates. In this project and in this course, we will be focusing on Agile Scrum model. So from the templates that are available, we will select Scrum. So now we have a new project called Demo Blaze, which is going to be created using the Scrum template. You can ignore the More options and finally click the Create button. Here, you can skip this part. Congratulations, you've created your first Agile Scrum project in JIRA. Here, there are some very helpful tips and guides provided by the JIRA platform to help you get settled in. Let's take the tour. This is the JIRA dashboard. As you can see here, based on our Agile Scrum template, we have a product backlog or backlog. Under the Quick Start menu, we have Create a Project. It indicates that this is the backlog, where user stories and requirements are prioritized, where we create different issue types from user stories to test scenarios and several other stages of the Agile process. Here is the option to create a sprint, and here is the option to start a sprint. And finally, there are insights available as well for helping gather information and data-driven analytics on the project. This is the general user account dashboard once logged in to our new Demo Blaze application. Once you've created a new Agile Scrum-based project in JIRA, you'll see the user account dashboard. This is the user account dashboard. As you can see here, this is the backlog or the product backlog in the Agile process. This is the sprint or the sprint board, and this is where the backlog contains or will contain issues, which are basically user stories that will be worked on. Here you can see there's a roadmap. The roadmap contains a timeline for how long each sprint is and what work needs to be done. And here we have our official Agile Scrum board. In the Agile Scrum board, you have different statuses for each unit of work or each user story. For example, a user story in the to-do column would mean that it hasn't yet been started, but is planned to be executed. In progress currently means that it's in progress or it's being worked on, and done, this column means that when the user story or the work is here, that means it's wrapped up or has been completed. You can customize this workflow and even add your own custom columns for your project needs. Here is an example of a dashboard in JIRA containing a product backlog with several user stories broken down into two main sprints. As you can see here, we have Sprint 1 and Sprint 2 containing several different stories. In the bottom here, you'll find the backlog containing even more stories. All of these stories are part of an active sprint lifecycle. Here, when you click on the board, you see there are several more columns than initially or originally we've seen in our initial dashboard. Several more columns than standard. These columns are customized based on the product lifecycle and project needs. Here, we've added development, testing, ready for approval, and done. The original workflow only had to do, in progress, and done. You can create as many customized columns in JIRA as you would like for your project needs. Under the roadmap section, you can clearly see a timeline with dates for each sprint cycle. As you can see here, this is the first sprint and this is the second sprint. Each sprint contains a number of stories. We will cover all of this and more in detail throughout this course. Once you've created an Agile project using the Agile Scrum template in JIRA, you can now move forward to exploring the dashboard and start creating your application. Here, as you can see under the sprint backlog or the product backlog, there's currently a sprint here named DEM Sprint 1. And here you have the option to add dates. Let's go ahead and delete this default sprint and create our own sprint from scratch. Here, you click on the three dots, and instead of editing the sprint, we'll go ahead and delete the sprint. Then you'll have the confirmation to delete. Here we'll delete. And now you can see that the entire product backlog is completely empty. To create our sprint, we'll go ahead and click on this button, Create Sprint. Under the sprint here, we'll go ahead and modify the sprint by clicking on Edit Sprint. Let's name our sprint Demo Blaze Core. The duration of our sprint will be 2 weeks. The start date of our sprint will be the 19th, and the end date will be 2 weeks from now. Under the sprint goal, we will identify and define what the goal of our first sprint for the Demo Blaze application is. Here, I will write something like design and develop the core features / functionality for the Demo Blaze e-commerce web application using our Agile Scrum project lifecycle model and requirements. This would be our sprint goal. Once we've entered all the details under the sprint name, we'll go ahead and update our sprint. As you can see here, all of the information now is reflected. Our Demo Blaze core, sprint name, the dates of our sprint, and also the empty backlog for which we will create user stories within our sprint. Under the backlog, you can see there are currently no issues or it's empty. On the dashboard of our Agile project, you can see here we have our board. Once we click on our board, you can see that there are 3 columns that indicate different statuses of our test lifecycle or our project lifecycle workflow. In this lifecycle, you can see that to do indicates that there are users that are planned to be done. In progress means that they're currently being worked on by 1 or more users, and done indicates that the entire has been completed and ready for sign off or approval by the client and product owner. Here, there's a plus button, and you can actually create multiple columns in this workflow and modify this workflow in your Agile JIRA project. Let's go ahead and add our custom workflow based on the existing demo board I've shown you earlier. With sample demo data, we'll go ahead and navigate to the board. As you can see here on this board, there are several more columns that have been added to the customized workflow. If you click on here and click on Manage Workflow, you can see that there's a diagram that indicates the different statuses and columns for each of these statuses in our workflow. As you can see here, when a user story or requirement is initially started, it moves from to do to in progress, development, testing, ready for approval, and finally, done or complete status. Let's go ahead and do this. Here, we're going to go ahead and create a few more columns that are tailor specific to our project. Under Manage Workflow, we can actually go ahead and add a few more statuses here. So one thing you must understand is that to do, in progress, and done are basically the main three statuses for which you can work with in JIRA. You can actually create other statuses or columns under statuses. For example, here, as you can see, there's a plus sign under each of these main statuses. So let's say, for example, for in progress status, let's say we want to add something like development, testing, and something like even UX design in our workflow. What we can do here is click under add in progress status, and here it will ask us to create our own status. If you read this carefully, it says you can add in progress statuses to represent different stages in the development process, for example, in code review or in staging. For example, we'll create two new statuses for our project workflow. First being development, clicking here and adding it. Second being testing, clicking here and adding it. So now we can move it around and customize our workflow like this. I will move my development status here and my testing status here. As you can see now, I currently have 5 statuses in my project workflow. Let's say I want to create one more status under the done status. Let's say I want to create something like approval under the done status. Here, I'll add approval. Now, our project workflow indicates that there are 6 statuses for each work item or agile user story to fall under. In the beginning, we have to do, which is planned, development, testing, and in progress, which are all different in progress stages, approval, and done, which is the done stages or the last or the final stages for a user story or task in JIRA. Let's switch it around a bit. I want to move development and testing after in progress, so it makes it more easier to understand and more logical. For example, a user story in the to-do column will be designed, planned, and worked on by different end users and stakeholders. Then in progress, meaning that members of the team are touching upon the user story, being developed, tested, approved, and finally marked done. Once this is complete and you're satisfied with the user workflow, go ahead and click Update Workflow and click Save and Continue. Finally, you'll see that the statuses have been updated by seeing this confirmation message, Workflow Update. And here is your customized workflow. Here are the lessons or special topics we'll be covering on the JIRA platform using our Agile Scrum template. We'll be going through several of these topics in detail with examples and sample data. We'll first start with our issue types, then move on to our epic, then move on to our user stories, subtasks, linking test cases and user stories and issues together, bugs and bug reporting, attachments and documents as well as reference links, and burn down charts and reporting in JIRA. In the Agile Scrum process, there are several phases of the lifecycle that are defined by items such as user stories, test cases, and test scenarios. These items are actually not called user stories and test scenarios or acceptance criteria in the JIRA platform itself. Instead, JIRA uses a classification known as issue types to define these particular elements. For example, on our backlog or product backlog, under the sprint, you see that there's an option to create an issue both under the sprint and the backlog. Here, when I click on Create Issue, there are three different options that can be selected for my issue type. The green is a user story, blue is a task, and the red is a bug. Let's explore the issue types in more detail on JIRA. Upon clicking Manage Issue Types, you'll see here on the left panel, you have epic, bug, story, task, and subtask. You also have the option to add another issue type. Create your own custom issue type here. For example, let's say in my Agile project, I want to add an issue type, test execution record. Here, this issue type will basically be indicating that a test case has been created and executed for a user story in the Agile Scrum board or project. I can change my icon. You can actually create a custom photo based on the dimensions provided, or click here on the three dots, find a unique icon for your test case execution or issue type. I'll click on this icon and select it. This icon indicates that this is a test execution record type. And then I'll click Create. Once I've clicked on this icon or created this icon, I can go and see the different description fields, context fields, and other fields. And here under fields, you can add different elements customized for your new issue type of test execution record. As you can see under a user story, I have the summary, description, assignee, or the person working on it, labels, sprint, and story point estimation. Task, very similar to the sprint user story, and test execution, also very similar. You can actually add more suggested fields, such as something like, for example, for a story, we'll go ahead and do start date, and due date here. Once we've added those fields to our story type, we'll save. And this will indicate that that the issue type has been updated successfully. Let's go back to our project and see if our changes have been reflected. So as you can see here, as before, the workflow has been updated. Now, if we go to our backlog and under create issue, there's a story, there's a task, there's a bug, test execution record issue type here. This is how you create a new issue and manage issue types in JIRA. Let's go into further detail. As you can see here on our sample demo Agile Scrum board with sample data already pre-populated, there are several different user stories in the first sprint and second sprint of our product backlog. Here, let's go ahead and open one of our user stories. If you click on the user story, it will actually give you a quick preview or quick view on the right side of the panel. Let's go ahead and actually open the user story itself by clicking on this link. Once we click on the user story link itself, you'll see that this is an issue type of a story. Under the story, to the right side of the panel, you'll have the assignee person who's assigned to this story. For example, I like to assign this story to myself. Labels, which you can create and customize yourself, and the sprint, which is Demo Blade Sprint 1 Core, which is actually the name of our first sprint. We'll go into story point estimation as well, and the reporter is myself. As you can see, the user story is currently in the to-do status because it hasn't been started, and someone is watching it, someone being me. I'm watching this user story. Under the description, you have the description or goal, which is to ensure that the DemoBlaze application website is easily accessible and available to customers at all times. This is basically a very simplified user story. And with that user story, under the description, you can find the acceptance criteria. Under the acceptance criteria, there are specific conditions listed here. Acceptance criteria being website is available 24/7 and accessible. It loads quickly, doesn't experience any significant errors or downtime. Website is secured with appropriate security measures to protect customer data. Provides a user-friendly and intuitive interface for customers to navigate and browse products. Website complies with relevant laws and regulations. Provides accessible features and accommodations for customers with disabilities. And finally, the website is regularly updated and maintained to provide optimal experience and user experience. This would be an example of a user story in the JIRA platform using the Agile Scrum template. Here we have child issues. These are basically subtasks. Subtasks are very important because this issue type indicates which item is being worked on by which team member or team. For example, under the design item type or subtask type indicates that the design is being worked on by the UX or UI designer for the wireframes and mockups. Research for the development team on which tools and technologies as well as programming languages they'll be used. Development under the development label or development tasks. Core testing, development again, under which are all development related items. Testing by the QA team. Testing will be performed using these item types or these labels. Project management by the project management team, project manager, business analyst, and other stakeholders. And the DevOps team, which is development and operations team, with this label. All of these subtasks are related or child issues linked to this one user story. And remember, these are all customizable and can be easily changed at any point of the lifecycle for your project needs. In the Agile Scrum project, we have something called an epic. An epic is an issue type in JIRA that consists of a collection of user stories that are focused on a particular feature or component of the application. Let's go ahead and create our first epic for the Demo Blaze core sprint. Here we click on the Create button, and here under the project Demo Blaze, we select the issue type of epic. By default, the epic issue type icon is this bolt in purple. The status is to do, and the summary for our epic will be Demo Blaze core. Under the description, we're going to add a brief description of what our epic is focused on. The purpose of this epic is to design and develop a e-commerce platform called Demo Blaze to host a product catalog that consists of phones, laptops, and monitors for digital shoppers around the world. Here, under the assignee, or who is assigned to, I'm going to assign it to myself. Under the label, let's create a new label. As you can see here, I've created a label called DB Core. If you want to create a new label, let's say you create something like DB Core Dev. This would be a new label. If you click on DB Core Dev, you would create this new label and you can use it throughout. For now, I'll just click on DB Core. The start date for our epic will be the 19th, and the due date will be 1 week from now. Within the 2-week sprint, I would like to dedicate 1 week to this epic to develop the core functionalities and features of the Demo Blaze web application. Then, once I'm satisfied with my epic information, I'll go ahead and click Create. As you can see here, you've created this issue, which is your new epic. Let's go ahead and view our epic. As you can see, all of the changes and information we've provided is now reflected in the form of an issue type, which is an epic. Here on the right side, we have me as the assignee, labels, start date, due date, and again, reporter, which is me. The status is currently on the to-do status, meaning it's planned and has not been started. And the description is exactly the description we provided. Now that we have our epic, we can move on to creating user stories that we can link under this umbrella of our epic. We'll create a series or a collection of user stories and link them to this epic in JIRA. All of the user stories are pinpoint accurate and focused on this particular epic to develop the core features, functionalities of the Demo Blaze application. Let's move on to the user stories now. As you can see here on our sample Agile Scrum demo board with pre-populated data, user stories are represented by the green logo or icon. Beside the user story, you can see there's something called Demo Blaze Core, which is our epic or the epic associated with this user story. If you click on a user story here, you can see that the epic and user story are linked together in a path. If you open a user story like this one, you can see that the user story is populated with all the relevant information, and it is actually listed under the epic here. If you click on the epic, you can see that there are several user stories that are associated under this epic. These user stories are part of a collection that need to be completed or are planned to be executed as part of this epic. This epic focuses on core functionality of developing the demo Blaze application. It focuses on things like buying a domain name, setting up the website, developing different features and applications such as the login screen, registration, finding product pages, product name, the checkout, shopping cart, and pretty much all of the most critical features and functionalities of the DemoBlaze e-commerce platform through this epic. Let's go ahead and create our version of the epic using the empty product backlog and Agile Scrum project that we've created already. Once we've created our epic called DemoBlaze Core and given it a description, as well as provided details on the right side, let's go back to our product backlog. Here, under the product backlog, we currently have no user stories. Under the backlog itself, or sprint, no user stories. Let's go ahead and create a few user stories for our product backlog. Here, we'll create a user story by clicking on Create Issue. This is the first way, so we can do something like DBC. As a user, I would like to access the DemoBlaze e-commerce web application or platform using my web browser to purchase online. And as simple as that, by pressing enter, we have created our first user story in the backlog. The user story is empty, it doesn't have any information other than the title. Let's go ahead and open this user story and look into it and provide more details or information by clicking here. Once we have opened our user story or on our user story page, we'll provide a description. Something like, as a user, I would like to access the DemoBlaze e-commerce website or application using my web browser to purchase products, electronic products such as phones, laptops, and monitors online, anywhere, anytime. This would be our description for this user story. Now that we have a description, let's go ahead and add our conditions or our acceptance criteria. Here, under our acceptance criteria, we can add things like user should be able to access the DemoBlaze website by typing in www.demoblaze.com into the web browser. User should be able to access the Demo Blaze website using Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome web browser, users should be able to access the Demo Blaze homepage without any timeout, exceptions, or errors with loading. Should be easy to navigate and user-friendly for all types of end users. The website should have security features and measures to protect consumer data and information. The website should be able to handle multiple users at the same time without any performance issues or problems. This would be our first user story with a description and acceptance criteria. Next, we'll save our user story by clicking here, Save. Now that we have our user story completed, we'll provide the start date as today and the due date in the next 4 days from today. So we're giving 4 days time to complete this task or complete this user story. There'll be several different steps that are required to complete this user story involving different aspects or different members of the team as well as sub-teams. We're talking from the business analyst perspective to the development perspective, QA team, product lifecycle and product management team, as well as the deployment team. All of these and more must be taken into consideration when developing a new user story. On the right side of the panel, you can see that the user story to-do phase, which means that it's still being planned or designed. I'll assign the assignee to myself initially because I'm acting as the initial reporter of the user story. As we move along the lifecycle from to-do to development, in progress, testing, approval, and done, what you will see happen is that every single team member from the development team or the testing team will assign it to themselves at that point of the life cycle. Let's say, for example, this story moves on to the next phase, which is development. The developer on my team will then assign this story to themselves once they have a development user. Under labels, let's go ahead and label it as DB Core. Under Sprint, let's go ahead and label it as Demo Blaze Core here. And for story point estimation, let's leave that for blank now, because in order to do story point estimation, we need to understand all of the tasks and subtasks that are associated with the different technical aspects of development and testing for this particular story. This completes our first user story. Now, let's go and link this user story to our epic on the backlog page. When we navigate to the backlog here, user story we just now created and completed, here there's an option to add epic. Let's click here and assign this user story to our Demo Blaze core epic. If we go ahead and click on the epic filter, you can see that our story is actually associated with this epic. Furthermore, if we search for the Demo Blaze core, Demo Blaze core, and we find our epic here and click on our epic, now you can see that the user story is actually, in fact, associated with this Demo Blaze core epic. This will be our first user story in this epic, with several others in the collection that are related to this epic and sprint. Let's move on to creating more user stories, associating them with epics, and furthermore, creating tasks and subtasks associated for steps in each user story. Learn how to create an epic and a user story in the Agile template in JIRA. Let's move on to another critical or important issue type known as tasks and subtasks. Tasks and subtasks are a type of issue type that are very important because they define the specific unit of work that is to be performed. These tasks and subtasks could be related to a development activity, a testing activity, or a planning or type of execution activity. Let's go ahead and create a task. We'll first click on the Create button here. Then, under the issue type, we select Task. In the summary of the task, we'll provide a brief summary, something like design, planning phase, technical architecture. Let's also provide a brief description for what this task is. The purpose of this task is to create a technical design and strategy for implementing the core features and functionality of the Demo Blaze website. This technical architecture will include a user interface, user experience, mockup, wireframe, domain name, and web hosting, template and layout, navigation menu, website pages, user input forms, text and buttons, as well as data processing, handling methods, and much more. This will help the team ultimately organize their thoughts and ideas on how to implement the design. Moving forward in this task, we'll go ahead and assign it to me or yourself. Label is DB core. The sprint we will be using to execute this task is Demo Blaze core, and we'll leave the story point estimate blank for now, but we will address the story point estimate in this task right away. Then we'll go ahead and create. As you can see here, it says you've created the issue. Let's go ahead and view our issue. So here you can see that a task is the issue type here. The name of the task is Design Planning Phase, Technical Architecture. The purpose of this task or the description is here. And to the right side, you have these optional fields. Here I've assigned it to myself. The label is DB core, sprint is defined, story point estimate, set yet, and the report is myself. As you can see, this task is right now in the to-do status, meaning it's still not activated yet. Now, under here, it says to add epic. So, just like a user story, we can actually assign our task to a particular epic. We want to choose this epic, the Demo Blaze core epic. If we navigate back to the backlog, you'll see that the sprint for Demo Blaze core now has a user story and the task we just created with the label Demo Blaze core epic. If we go into the Demo Blaze core epic, you'll also see that the user story and task are both listed under this epic as expected. This is how you create a task in JIRA. Once you've created a task, you can also further break down the task itself using another issue type known as subtasks. Subtasks are pretty much the step-by-step instructions or units of a larger task. Let's go ahead and create a few subtasks. Once we're here on our task, let's go ahead and click on this button, Add a Child Issue. Now, under the description, the purpose of this task is to create a technical architecture and design, pretty much a blueprint for how we want to implement the core features and functionality of the DemoBlaze website. As you can see here, as part of the technical architecture, we want to create a user interface, a user experience mockup, wireframe, set up our domain name and hosting, create a template and layout or choose one from a theme, navigation menu, website pages, user input forms, text and buttons, data processing, handling and methods, and many other things. We're going to break this down through subtasks. Let's brainstorm some subtasks that could be associated with this main task. First, let's think of something like technical requirements, mapping, and blueprints. Next, let's move on to system architecture document/guide, UX, UI, wireframe, and mockups, development stack, which could include programming languages, platforms, tools, and plugins. We could also think of things like licenses and paid features required. Also, we look into things like setting up the development environment. We'll focus on something like a front-end development strategy, which consists of HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, PHP. As example, a back-end development strategy, Java, Spring Boot, SQL Server for our back-end database, Postman API for our API processing and testing, Jenkins for our build management, continuous integration, and continuous development. As far as QA or software testing is concerned for our application in this task, we'll come up with a QA test plan. strategy, and documentation. Move on to QA testing itself, choosing specific front-end user interface testing methods. Then again, just like front-end, we'll go with back-end database, data processing, and API testing. And we'll also look into a DevOps strategy for environment testing, integration, build, deployment, and monitoring. As you can see here, this pretty much gives us a very detailed look at the task at hand, as well as the different stakeholders and teams that are associated with this task. This one task encompasses many different team members. In this task, we have the UX UI design team, we have the development team involved, we have the QA testing team involved, as well as the DevOps team involved. So this task pretty much involves all members of the team in some capacity or another. Now, let's move on to the story point estimation. Since this is the planning and technical architect phase, we don't want to focus on assigning each of these stories too many points. So how it works when it comes to story point estimation is that the larger the points, the more complexity of a user story or a task. So, for example, technical requirements, mapping, and blueprints will assign this one user story point. This subtask will be one story point or 1 point because it will not require too much complexity and really just involves documentation. Same with this one, System Architecture Document Guide. UX UI frames and wireframes and mockups will also be 1 point. Defining, identifying, and documenting the programming languages, platforms, tools, and plugins, 1 point. Licenses and features, 1 point. Development environment setup and configuration, 1 point. Strategy, front end, strategy, back end. Now the QA test plan might require some time, so we'll go ahead and put 2 points for this. QA testing front end interface methods, 1 point. QA testing back end, 1 point. Now front end and back end are clearly defined in the QA test plan strategy and document. And finally, the DevOps strategy, which is also 1 point. So now, if you look at all of these user story points, we can combine all of them and get a total number. So let's see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So now, this technical task that is part of our epic or our sprint is going to be a total of 13 story points. What this means is that, as you can see here, there's a progress bar that says 0% done. As each of these subtasks are completed from a to-do workflow to a done status, this percentage will be updated from 0 to 100% at its time of its completion. With 13 story points distributed across several different areas or members of the team, from development, QA, design, and DevOps, you'll be able to track and see the progress every single day in the sprint lifecycle. This basically gives us a clear idea of the task, subtasks, and pretty much tracking everything from a high level perspective to a very, very detailed view of the entire process. Now that we've covered how to create a task and a subtask in the Agile Scrum Sprint board, we'll go ahead and look at another option. We can actually create subtasks directly in a story as well, besides a task itself. Let's go into our story. Here in our user story, we don't have a story point estimation yet. In order to estimate a story point, we need to assign subtasks. And through these subtasks, we're able to identify the complexity of the story, as well as how much time it will take to complete the story during the sprint. For example, let's go ahead and create a few subtasks for this particular user story. To create a subtask, just like before, we go ahead and add a child issue. Here, let's add a few subtasks. Here, we can specify what needs to be done. For example, under this specific user story, we'll look at UX, UI, design, wireframes, and mockups to create layout, template, outline, and theme of our website. Next, we go ahead and do development task, which is register the domain name for our application or website. Then another development task or subtask would be to choose a web hosting provider. Development task such as front-end development can be in the form of HTML5, Bootstrap, CSS3, JavaScript, PHP, and more. Now looking at some of the back-end technologies for development, we'll choose a programming language like Java 8, Spring Boot, Angular, Angular JavaScript or Angular JS, SQL database, Postman API for API testing and collections, as well as Jenkins for continuous integration, continuous development. As far as testing for our user story is concerned, we'll look at front and user interface testing, which includes important things like accessing the website, using a domain name provided, making sure that certain fields, buttons, text, and information is present on the website, and other very important user interface or front-facing testing capabilities. Another important aspect of testing here is back-end testing to ensure that the data that's being inputted into the form or the application is being registered in the backend or processed in the backend. And finally, we have cross-browser testing, which is very important so that the application can be accessed in both Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox. And finally, we have performance testing. Performance testing is needed to ensure that multiple users can access the website at the same time without causing delays or exceptions or errors on the website. Now that we've identified and listed some of the subtasks for our user story, we have to look at the story point estimation part. Here, in order to determine the story point estimate for our user story here, we need to have a sprint planning meeting, or a PI meeting as they call it. In the Agile lifecycle process, the sprint planning meeting is where the development team, testing team, design team, and other stakeholders or important members of the team all meet to ensure that these particular subtasks relevant, and able to be completed in the given time frame. As you can see here, if we open one of these subtasks, there's a description field. So here, for UX UI design, we can provide a description such as an outline of all pages on the Demo Blaze website, document these pages using wireframes, mockups, and other important forms of workflows, and save here. So now our subtask has a description. Here, under the subtask, it's still under to-do status, meaning it still hasn't been activated. It'll only be activated when the sprint is activated or sprint is completed, started. For the assignee, I'm currently going to assign it to myself. Label, DB core, sprint. For story point estimation, this subtask entirely depends on the design team or the design members of the team. The design members, based on their experience and skill, will determine how many story point estimates are needed to complete this particular subtask. For example, a story point number of 1 is a very small or very simple story point. It doesn't require much time, and it could be completed within an hour or two. A story point of 1 could be placed here. A story point of 2 would be a little bit more complex, but also on the simple side. A story point 3 is medium complex, whereas a story point 5 is of very high complexity, requiring several days or even a week to complete based on the user requirements and the amount of work required in terms of time and effort. Story point estimation is usually done with a team meeting through the sprint planning meeting involving the Scrum Master, product owner, and a very specialized group of people who really know and understand how much time it takes in order to complete a particular task. One of the most important aspects of the Agile process is story point estimation. Story point estimation is basically an estimate of time and effort given to a particular user story. Let's go ahead and explore how we can assign story points to any user story in an Agile process using a chart. This chart is a chart for Agile story point estimation. We're going to go through each story point number, determine what conditions are required for that particular story point. When working with an Agile user story, you can have these following story points: 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8. 1 being the lowest story point and 8 being the highest story point. Usually in the Agile Scrum process or in the Agile process, a story point of 1 is actually low complexity, low time and effort, and low risk, whereas a story point of 8 is of extremely high and very complex nature with extreme risk, taking a lot more time and effort. In this chart, you can see that a story point of 1 is minimum effort, takes a few minutes to a few hours to complete, has little complexity, and is of low risk. Some user stories that are usually assigned story point of 1 include things like documentation or note-taking. A story point of 2 is minimum required effort, takes about a few hours, is low complexity, and also lower risk. Point of 2 can be something like installation of a programming language such as Java or setting up a very easy plugin. A story point of 3 is average required effort, takes about a few hours to maybe even a day of required time, is of medium complexity, and has an average risk. Story point of 3 could be something like running a regression test to ensure that there are no tests from the previous sprint or the current sprints that are broken. A story point of 5 is of high complexity and required effort, takes about a few days, and is above average or higher risk. A story point of 5 could be something like a critical component or functionality, such as the login page or the login feature, whereas the username and password is being developed. A story point of 8 on the highest end of the spectrum or scale is of extreme required effort, a week of required time or even more, and very high complexity with extreme risk. A story point of 8 can be something like developing the search functionality or the search menu for an e-commerce application, ensuring that search results are accurately filtered in a display column. This is a very reliable chart to be used when working with Agile story point estimations. In our Demo Blaze web application product backlog, with demo and sample data pre-populated, we can see that we have a sprint here, which is core, and a sprint here, a second sprint, which is payment, and also the backlog containing some other items or user stories. In this project, which is basically the project we will be using for running a sample sprint demo, will be used to indicate what the backlog items are, what the sprint core items are, and what a second sprint may look like. Let's go ahead and look at some of these stories and assign sprint estimations. We're going to go ahead and open this first story. Click on here. Here in our first story, we see as a customer, I want to be able to access the Demo Blaze website using my browser. Here, as you can see, the goal and acceptance criteria is clearly outlined. On the right side, the fields are completed, except for one field, the story point estimate. Here, in order to get the story point estimate, we need to complete all of these items. For Sprint 1, Epic, Demo Blaze Core, and start from there. Here, when we search for Demo Blaze Core, click on here, this opens our Demo Blaze Core Epic. Under the Epic, you can see there are several child issues, which are our user stories. There are several These child issues are linked to our Epic. Here, what we need to do is go into each of these user stories and provide estimates for each of the tasks or subtasks associated with each user story. Let's go ahead and click into the first one, mobile devices. In this user story, as a customer, I should be able to access Demo Blaze website from mobile devices. Under the description, as you can see, the objective of this requirement is to ensure that customers are able to access the Demo Blaze website using their mobile devices with ease. This means that the website should be optimized for mobile devices and features should be available on the mobile version of the website. As you can see here, the acceptance criteria is provided. And here are the subtasks or child issues for this particular story. As you can see here, it hasn't been assigned, so I'm going to go ahead and assign it to myself. It's on the to-do status, meaning that it hasn't been activated yet. Label, I'll go ahead and do DBC, which is Demo Blaze Core. And story point estimate, we haven't done yet because we are not able to make the estimate unless we first assign estimates to our subtasks. Okay, So now let's go into each of our subtasks and provide a story estimate using our chart, Agile Estimates, using our Agile Story Estimates chart. Let's go into here, research for mobile applications. In the research, we're going to look into Android and iOS systems. Here, I would like to say that I'll go ahead and assign it to myself, put DPC, and for the story estimate, I'm going to put 1 point. For the research phase, it's not as complex because we're just kind of gathering some documentation and research, which can be done rather quickly and efficiently. Let's go back to our story. Once we've assigned a user story estimate, you see here the number 1 is reflected. Let's go into this user story for design. Mobile UX, UI, same as desktop version. For design, we'll do the same thing, and our estimate will be 1. We just want to ensure that the desktop and the mobile version of the website is the same, which is simple. Here, reflected 1 again. Let's go to design here again. Same steps. Story point of 1. Following on, we'll go now to mobile development and the development phase. Here, implementation for front-end and back-end integration is kind of a more complex task. So what we're going to do here is give a story point estimate of 2, as per the suggestion or recommendation of the development team. Now, another development task or subtask is to user input data processing in the backend data store. In our sprint planning meeting, the development team had said that this would be an estimate of 2. Let's go to the core site functionality in the iOS platform. 2. Core site functionality in Android. Here, we're going to put an estimate of 2. Now, we're going to move on to the testing phase or QA testing phase for mobile testing. Here, we're going to do mobile testing, which should be very simple and easy to perform. So this is going to be 1. Theme and layout, another 1. Mobile testing web content, text, product images, prices, buttons are visible, a 1, since it's a very simple task. Shopping cart displays product added and can be removed, also 1. And finally, mobile testing, the shopping cart total price reflects accurately, which is also 1. Now, as you can see here, for this user story, as a customer, I should be able to access DemoBlaze website from mobile devices. You can see that all of the subtasks under the child issues have a story point estimation. What we can do now is actually combine and sum the total of all of these story point estimations and take that total and provide it in this field. So let's count all of them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So in total, this user story has 16 story points. What that means is amongst the team during our sprint planning meeting, all of the tasks breakdown for this story has come up to a total of 16. Most of these subtasks for this story are very simple, are not as complex because they're just kind of mirroring or ensuring that the mobile version of the DemoBlaze application is the same and acts the same in terms of functionality and design. Now, let's go back to our epic. As you can see here, once I've completed assigning all of the story points to my subtasks in my epic and updating my user story, under my epic, I can see that the user story has the 16 here for story points. This was a more simpler story with very little involvement in terms of development and implementation as well as testing. Let's move on to a more complex user story and see how that looks. Here, in this user story, I want to be able to create a new account using my personal details. This is a critical core functionality or feature of our website or application. Let's click on this. As you can see here, description. Customers can create a new account on the DemoBlaze website using username and password. Acceptance criteria. Customers should be able to navigate to create account page from the home page, should be able to enter a valid username, enter a valid password, validate the customer's input. Customer should see the close button in dialog, and the customer should sign up button in dialog. As you can see here, there are significantly more items or subtasks under this user story, and not all of them are as simple as the ones before. Let's go ahead and look into each of these subtasks. Design. The design team during our sprint planning meeting had indicated that this would take a story point of 1. Now we move on to development. The username field should be an estimate of 1 as well. Password field should also be 1. Input validation, we'll give it a 1 as well. Success alert would be 1. Existing user message will be 1. Close button should also be a 1. Sign up button, we'll give it a 1. For testing, we're going to go for the user interface username field. We'll give this a 1. Password field will be a 1. Close button should be a 1. Sign up button should also be a 1. Success message should also be a 1. And lastly, the existing user message should also be a 1. Now, if we go back to this user story and we look at all of the child issues or subtasks, we see that almost every single subtask is a 1. So if we count all of them and find the total, we'll see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So here we have 14 points for this user story. Now you can see that there are less story points for this because although it is a very critical core component or feature of our application, most of these items or subtasks are very quick and easy to perform with very little complexity and complications. But let's say that you want to know more specifically in a more detailed way, how much time do you actually take for each of these items? Because although the story point is 1 for all of them, each of them may not take as much time as each other. One may take 5 minutes, another may take 30 minutes. How do we incorporate that into our workflow for our Agile project? You can modify the fields and information as well as options for each of these user story points by clicking here on Configure, Configure Fields. Under the task or subtask, you want to look at the right side here. Now, for our subtask, you can see the description fields are summary, description. Context fields are status, assignee, labels, sprint, and story point estimate. Reporter is also here, but it's hidden. Now, let's go ahead and look at the fields on the right called actual end and actual start. I'm going to drag actual start over here and actual end over here. Now you can see that the issue type is updated, and I'll go back to my project. I go back to my backlog, go into my users, go into my Epic, and look at my new account personal details. If I go into any of these subtasks, you can now see that there's two additional fields on the right side that I've added in terms of configuration to display: actual start and actual end. Here I can see that I started this today and I ended it here. So it took me about 30 minutes for the actual start and actual end. Let's say I want to add further configuration. Once we're on configure and we go back to our subtask, we can see that we have actual start and actual end, but this is not what we actually want for our issue type or user story. We're looking for more of a single field that gives us a number such as 30 minutes, 10 minutes, or something of that time sort. Go ahead and remove the actual start and actual end and save changes. Now the issue type has been updated. Now, if you can't find a field here, such as time, which is not these two, we'll go to custom fields. Under custom fields, we'll look for time. And there's really nothing here that would help for our purpose of tracking and logging the estimated time. What we can do here is create our custom field here. Here, there are many different types of field types you can create. For example, we have date picker, checkboxes, labels as well. I'm going to go ahead and create a number field. Press my new number field, I'll name it time to complete. And the description I'll provide is the estimated time to complete this item in minutes. Next, I'll create this item. Here, under issues, associate field time to complete to screens. Now, I'll go ahead and click on all of these and update. Now, if you look in custom fields, you look at time to complete, which is here. This is our number field. It's under 3 screens, 1 context. There's no information here. Let's go back to our project. Under the backlog, back into our Epic, and finally, back into our user story. Let's go ahead and look into any of these subtasks. For example, username field. The development of the username field by the developer indicated was a 1 story point estimate. Now, in order to see if our changes have taken effect, we'll go to Configure, under Subtask, We'll look here for our time to complete new suggested field, which is now visible. We'll move this over to under context fields under story point estimate, save changes under development username field. Now, if you look on the right side of our panel under the story point estimate, set time to complete as 15. This indicates 15 minutes. Now, if I go back to any of the subtasks under my user story, you can see that the time to complete field, which is our custom field, is now available. This is really crucial because you can actually take advantage of the full and powerful customization features of JIRA using these custom fields. This just goes to show you how powerful JIRA can be within an agile Scrum. One of the most important features of JIRA in any project, whether it's agile or not, is linking. Linking issues is a very important feature because in order for items and issue types to be successfully completed and referenced to one another, you need to be able to link them. Let's go ahead and create a test case execution record. This is a new type we have not yet utilized yet. Here, we're going to go ahead and test the login feature. Again, test the login functionality of our demo Blaze application using username and password input, as well as the login button. For now, select Sprint, and then Create. Now we've created a new issue type. Here is the test login feature. Although on the right side you can see that the label is DB core, story point estimate is empty, Sprint is demo Blaze core, we want to be able to link this issue type, which is a test case execution record, back to the original user story for which it tests. Now, we want to first click on Epic and click Recent Epics. Click here. Just by clicking on this and clicking on the Demo Blaze Core Epic, we can see we have successfully linked the login feature test execution issue type to the epic. This is an example of linking. But if we go in here, we can also link an issue by clicking here, link issue. And under the linking issues, there's quite a few options. Is blocked by blocks, is cloned by clones, is duplicated by duplicates, and relates to. The one that I use most often is relates to. Here, they'll give you all the options and items within your project. Since this is the only story in my project currently, I'm going to go ahead and click on this story and click link. I'm also going to assign a story point estimate. Let's say the story point estimate here is 1, according to our test case and tester. Now that we have linked this execution record or test execution record to our user story, we can go back to our user story and see at the very bottom that under linked issues, you can see that the actual execution record is now visible here. This is how you link any issue to a user story or vice versa. Here under the product backlog, we have quite a few user stories. Let's go into our epic. Under the epic, let's focus on the user stories that have a complete story point estimate assigned to them. Let's see for this one, for example, for the mobile devices. Here under the mobile devices, During our sprint planning meeting for the team, we've assigned all of these subtasks a particular story point estimate. Let's say we want to create a test plan or a test execution for all of these subtasks under mobile testing. Let's click on the Create button here. Under the issue type, you will see a test and issue type. Under the summary, we're going to go ahead and write a summary for our test case execution plan. Mobile testing lifecycle. Here, this test case execution plan focuses on all aspects of mobile testing related to our demo Blaze application. Through this plan, we'll complete all testing for the related ticket. Under labels, we'll select DBC, start date being today, and due date being tomorrow. And here under linked issues to go ahead and relate to here. As a customer, I should be able to access DemoBlaze website from mobile devices. Once we see this is done and click Create, we'll go ahead and view the issue. Now, as you can see here, this is our test case execution plan. Under the test case execution plan, we have our description, and finally the linked issues, which is our original user story. To the right side, we're going to assign it to ourselves, give it a story point estimate based on what the story points for all of the mobile testing stories are combined, which we'll do right shortly after the sprint, which we'll do for core, and time to complete, which we will also do based on the estimates provided in the mobile testing area. Let's go back to our user story. Now, as you can see here, for all of the mobile testing, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Story point estimate then for that test case execution will be 5. And let's say it'll take about 90 minutes to complete testing everything. Now we'll go ahead and add the epic. The final step here for mobile testing under this test case execution record for linking all of these issues is to click on the execution record. And here under link issue, we're going to go ahead and press the plus button. Now it's going to be relates to, and we're going to do everything under mobile. So here we have 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. These are the 5 subtasks that are related to the mobile testing for this particular user story. We're going to go ahead and link. Now, as you can see here, this is a complete example or a demo of a test case execution that has the user story and subtasks fully linked to it in both ways. If you go onto the user story, you'll see that it is linking this test case execution issue. And now if you go into any of the subtasks that have mobile testing in it, you'll see the test case execution is also listed under linked issues. This is how linking is a very powerful feature and way to accomplish and track things in the JIRA platform. Under our test case execution record or test case execution plan, we have our linked issues, we have our story point estimate, sprint, and all this other information. Another very important aspect or feature within the JIRA Agile Sprint process or project is attachments. Let's say we would like to attach a manual test case in an Excel file that we've worked on earlier for this particular ticket. Here, in order to attach something, let's say we look at the one we worked on earlier. This is the test case template we worked on some time ago in the last chapter. Here we have the complete test case solution 1, 2, and 3 from before. We're going to go ahead and attach this to our test case execution plan as evidence or actual documentation for our testing. Now, in order to attach documentation, evidence, or anything else that's relevant to your current ticket, especially within the testing lifecycle, click here on Attach, go to our File Test Case Template, and click Open. Now, as you can see, it's going to create a preview of our attachment for the test case template with completed data and information. Once the attachment has been uploaded successfully, we can click here and see that the actual test case information and template with the data we've provided is available. Although the format is not the same, if you download this file onto your Microsoft Excel application, then everything will look the same. This is how you attach things in a JIRA project, and which is critical as part of documentation and tracking purposes for each ticket. In the Agile testing lifecycle, one of the most important aspects of the JIRA platform is the ability to create a bug or defect in a lifecycle. Testing a test case for our application, we may run into a defect, error, or unusual behavior, which we need to report to our team and ultimately back to the developers to ensure that this does not affect the overall application once released into the real world. Let's say, for example, when executing Demo Blaze test case number 1 for our shopping cart feature, we notice that all the steps have passed thus far, up until step number 9. And then when we come to step 10, the expected result is that we want to verify that the total price of the products in the cart is accurate, meaning that the individual item prices, when combined, add up to a total price. When we see the actual results, we notice that the total price of the product in the cart is not accurate. The numbers of all individual item prices, when added or summed up together, do not total the expected value. Here, we'll put failed. Once we've noted that this is a bug in the system, what we will do now is report it in JIRA. Now, in order to do this, we'll go ahead and create a new issue type of a bug in JIRA. We'll want to take a screenshot of this step in our first test case as well. We can take a screenshot by clicking here on a built-in default tool in Microsoft Windows known as Snipping Tool. Go ahead and click on the Snipping tool, press New, and here take a screenshot of the failed step. Now that we've identified that a step has failed in our test case, we can go ahead and proceed with reporting the bug by clicking here on Create. Issue type will be bug. For the summary, we will list it as the total price of all products in the shopping cart do not sum to the expected total value. Here, we'll go ahead and repeat the same in the description and provide some more details, such as when I have 4 products in the cart, all with different product prices, that the total price of all items in the cart do not add up to the total sum of all individual product prices. Here under labels, we're going to select DBC and the reporter will be me. Under linked issues, we want to go ahead and select relates to and select the issue of our test execution here, mobile testing lifecycle, and press create. Now we'll go ahead and click here on view issue. As you can see here, a new bug has been created that's been linked to our test case execution. We can also attach our screenshot. Once the screenshot has been attached for the step number 10, we can also put the assignee as myself, sprint, demo plays core 1, and story point estimate blank. This is the process of how to create or report a bug in JIRA during the testing lifecycle. A very useful function in JIRA is the search function. Here under the search function for Search JIRA, you can see that all of the recently viewed issues are listed here, boards are listed, as well as advanced issue search. Using the search dialog or search menu, under the search function, if you click here under advanced issue search, you can see that all of your issue types from subtasks, epics, user stories, test execution, and bugs are all listed here. As you can see, there are 4 pages worth of issue types under this search feature. Under advanced search, you can do something here, such as you can search by project, by type of standard issue type, status, and assignee, so different users. And also, there are more advanced search options for larger projects with way more data. But this is a very useful function when trying to manage, organize, and search for issues in a large data set. Although JIRA has powerful features and functionality for managing and tracking an agile Scrum-based project, it lacks a lot of core functionality and features for easily tracking software testing lifecycle. There are some very useful and powerful plugins that can be integrated with the JIRA platform, such as the X-Ray plugin that can help manage the software testing lifecycle in a very easy, powerful, and convenient way. In the next section, we will explore the X-Ray plugin for the JIRA Agile platform. Using the X-Ray plugin, we will create test cases, test plans, track, and manage the entire test lifecycle using its powerful built-in features. Its integration with JIRA is actually very helpful in tracking, managing, and even reporting. This concludes our section on Agile Software Project Management using the JIRA platform. You guys are making excellent progress. Let's move on to the X-Ray plugin in the next chapter.